Hi, it's me again, Zach Lewis, and you're on the channel Worldwide ZSL. ZSL are my initials, for those of you who may have wondered, Zachary Scott Lewis. And today, my topic is going to be great resources for language learning. As I've introduced myself in my last video, for those of you who haven't seen my last video, I'm a polyglot. And that just means people who speak, I think the current definition, if I'm not mistaken, is five or more languages. And resources um, are just very broad in these days on learning languages. My biggest thing, or my two biggest things, are some form of communication with a foreigner from the country of the language you're trying to learn, whether that be a person, like in person, or movies. Movies are a great source because you can really pick up on the accent. You can hear how a conversation fluidly is spoken, um, and also you get some cultural aspects too if it's like a realistic movie. Um, and another resource I always use is always my first go-to are books. Books could not be a bigger help. Books explain concisely how to do things. They have better pronunciations than you can find outside of a foreigner. Say like you live in a very small town, you want to learn languages, say you've traveled a lot, but right now you just don't have the ability to go see a foreigner. Books are going to be your number one because books give so much, and even YouTube videos can help too. But never learn a language from YouTube because there could be a lot of mistakes. You might not have the internet forever, or I don't know. I think someone who's going to take the language learning seriously, you should probably already know not to learn a language from YouTube. You can obviously sample languages, see what they sound like. You can get great dialect updates, great pronunciation guides on YouTube as well if you can't seem to find a foreigner from the country you're looking forward to, or the country well, I mean, you could be looking forward to going to the country, I hope so, or the language you're going to learn. And, pardon me, and books give a large number of resources. You can paperback or hardback. I don't really care. I wouldn't really suggest using Kindle or anything like that, just because a lot of times for beginners who get like a beginner's book or a complete teach yourself book, which is a good book series. Never discredit it because it uses a wide range of languages. That's actually the only bulk series I really trust outside of dictionaries and stuff like that, like Oxford and stuff like that. But you constantly are gonna have to keep going back if you're learning the alphabet, which I suggest that's about the first thing you should do with any language is learn its alphabet, so that if you do find any source, whether it be in the world or in the book itself, which should cover the alphabet, or it's not necessarily a very good book, um, uh, the alphabet's definitely should be your very first priority. Granted, if it doesn't have a very hard alphabet and you need to know the language fast, then I suggest covering speech first, or unless it's obviously like Chinese, whether any dialect or Cantonese. Um, just because obviously, if you are going to study Chinese and Cantonese, you should know by now that they use a system of characters instead of an alphabet. Um, as far as that goes, books, you're going to want to keep flipping back to the pronunciation guide for each of the letters, which happens quite often. It even happens to me every time I pick a new language, just because that's something you run into every language. Um, and that's definitely a big part of why I use paperback or hardback or just actual books and not the Kindle thing. I don't think against Kindle if that's all you've got, or if you're on the go a lot and you can't haul around big books. You know, I understand if you have to use Kindle. I'm not saying I'm against Kindle in that way. I'm just saying personally, I myself prefer book. Then again, I have like book bags, so like, I can carry my books in if I have to go. Um, and That's, I think, one of the biggest resources. Audio programs, I get a lot of like, okay, well, how does Rosetta Stone work? Um, Pardon me. I have nothing against Rosetta Stone. It takes a lot of dedication, takes a lot of time. One thing they don't give you, which I think is going to sound bad at first, for those of you who are going to purchase Rosetta Stone, it does work for some people. Some. I've tried Rosetta Stone Korean, Rosetta Stone Chinese, Rosetta Stone French. They have their merits. One thing they do is they immerse you in it. But for a lot of beginners who have no experience with the language, that can be a very um, bad thing, uh, because you won't know where to go. And by that, when I say immerse, as far as where that stone goes, they don't give you any English translation. They give you pictures, and they'll show like a guy waving, and like if they wanna say like, oh, how are you, they'll get like a picture of like a guy doing this, and then for French they'll just put comment allez-vous, and you have to kind of assume. But when they get into more complex stuff, uh, because there's really no way to branch necessarily to tell if you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced unless you have if you take tests regularly, if you go by a series of books, or if you know a foreigner who can just tell you, oh, you're pretty good. You're not fluent, but stuff like that. So it's hard for audios. So I'm not saying they did it wrong. I'm just saying uh, it is a hard thing because in the Rosetta Stones they're very expensive. They're about $400 to $500. Um, but that's because if you buy the full pack for the $400 to $500, it's supposed to take you up to pretty respectable fluency. I mean, you won't be able to cover every single topic possible, but you'll be able to cover that as much as any typical person encounters in a daily life in that country, of whatever language you're studying. So I'm not saying Rosetta Stone is wrong by any means. That's a hard thing to cover. It's hard to guarantee someone that they're going to get fluency. Some minds just work. Well, all minds work differently. That's just the way that goes. Um, a really good audio course, I think, if you really want to stick to audio because you can't find a foreigner, is Pimsleur. Pimsleur is a fantastic thing. The only thing that sucks, I guess, about it, or is not the greatest. I think this can be a big part of it too. Is they include no reading, no writing, nothing. But they focus solely on the biggest problem. They give you confidence on when you're actually saying a sentence that you'll be saying it correctly, perfect timing, whatever. That's a very good course. That can get actually pretty expensive too. I think for phase one they call it, which takes you from beginner to intermediate supposedly, um, to cover pretty general things, saying hello, small talk, some banter, direction giving, uh, not necessarily complex stuff like that. I think it's about $120 if you get it off like Amazon or something like that. If you actually get it off the website on CD, it's about $300. So you run in a price range when you get into really big name stuff like that. I'd say just go to your local bookstore, see what you can find. Bookstores are really good too for looking for books because then you can actually flip through them, see what you want, see if it covers topics you need to know, um, which obviously is a really big resource. And I'll talk about more about this in my next video. But until then, if you need anything, email me, anything like that. If you want me to cover your language, go ahead. If you want, if there's a topic I maybe am not covering in my videos that you want to know about, absolutely feel free to contact me in any way possible. And until next time.